Are you a woman in the corporate world striving to break barriers, challenge unconscious bias, and lead the way for women in leadership roles globally? If so, this is the podcast for you. Introducing Leading Ladies Who Lunch. The lunch hour is usually the time when colleagues get together for real, honest conversations about work, life, and everything in between. In each episode of Leading Ladies Who Lunch, we'll delve into insightful discussions and share actionable strategies to help you navigate corporate life. Co-hosted by me, Cicy George, a leadership development architect and inspirational speaker. I'm thrilled to share my experience and expertise on leadership, mentorship, and organizational intelligence to help you own your career.
And me, Rachel Lowndes, CEO and founder, imposter syndrome expert, and mindset coach at Rachel Lowndes Coaching and Consulting. Passionate about helping women conquer imposter syndrome and unleash their inner confidence to get the recognition and promotions they deserve.
Jam-packed with insightful conversations, expert advice, and inspiring stories from a diverse group, we'll explore how to overcome obstacles, shatter those glass ceilings, and build unshakable mindsets to unlock your true potential. So whether you're sipping a coffee or enjoying a meal at your desk, tune in for a no-host bar lunchtime chat. Episodes will be dropped every 2 weeks. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Leading Ladies Who Lunch, empowering women, one conversation at a time. Welcome back to the Leading Ladies Who Lunch podcast. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by a very special and super inspiring guest, Melanie Marlo. Now, Melanie is a developer and designer living and creating in Los Angeles, California. Her conceptual designs are built by utilizing her expertise in relationships and fashion and molding them into beautiful, sophisticated homes. Melanie gathers inspiration for her designs anywhere and everywhere, whether it be influences from fashion runways, holidays with family, or California's ever-evolving culture. Now, growing up in England, Melanie's passion for fashion and modeling as a teenager compelled her to move to Los Angeles, where she instantly felt at home. Before designing homes, Melanie was a successful matchmaker for exclusive clients, public figures, and celebrities, helping individuals achieve fundamental self-esteem and restoring healthy mindsets. Now, I had the pleasure of recently meeting Melanie in London for a coffee, and we ended up chatting for 4 hours. I had the most amazing time together with Melanie. I could have spent all day with her. And I first heard about Melanie when I listened to a podcast episode she did with JT Fox. And I thought, wow, this woman is amazing, not just from the way she handled him, because he is quite a tricky, powerful character, but also also how interesting her life was, from being, a matchmaker, her advice about relationships, and to how she came to build a stunning $25 million property in Bel Air. So I knew I just had to meet her. So Melanie, welcome. It's amazing to have you here on the podcast with us today.
Thank you for having me. And yes, that quick cup of tea turned into a marathon, didn't it? But it was so delightful and so much fun. We just couldn't stop. So it was lovely. Thank you for having me.
Melanie, I'm thrilled to meet you. I mean, Rachel really has pumped up this conversation. And the second she talked about how amazing your chat was, I was like, wow, I really can't wait to have a conversation with her. So again, thank you so much for joining us today.
And lovely to meet you. And she spoke very highly about you too. So it really is a pleasure to meet you both on this podcast. And as you know, I'm really a podcast veteran yet. So be gentle with me.
Of course. So, Melanie, I really am excited to have you here. As mentioned, I first heard about you on JT's podcast and got in touch with you on Instagram, which then led us to meet up in person, which was incredible. Now, I really loved the way that you talked about your life and the perspectives you share. Now, can you tell our listeners how you ended up as a celebrity matchmaker and connecting with, which I believe you connected with Patty Stango originally and then went on to create your own matchmaking company. Can you tell us what that experience was like and how you kind of ended up there?
Yes, I met Patty many years ago, and she was trying to recruit me as one of the ladies to be match made, and I was in a relationship, so I kindly declined. But um, I was living in Italy at the time, and I was listening to the radio, and it said that matchmaking was a $5 billion industry. So my entrepreneur ears started to wag. And so I called Patty and I said, remember me? I am interested in bringing the Millionaires Club over to Europe, which is where I lived at the time. So we hammered out a deal where I would represent the Millionaires Club in Western Europe, and we would be under the one umbrella, and she was my partner.
Mm.
And that's how my matchmaking career started.
Amazing. And did you, I mean, I don't know if you can say, but kind of from high profile public figures to celebrities, who was the most exciting person that can you say names, or is there
Well, I
parameters?
certainly can't say names. I get into an awful lot of trouble, but I do have lots of fun stories. And what I've realized over the years of dealing with high net worth and wealth, they're an actual bunch, aren't they? And they do think that the rules of engagement do not apply to them, generally speaking. So I have lots of fun stories. Um, Unfortunately, I cannot divulge the names, but it's always, gosh, I can't believe you said that, or I can't believe you did that. And there was a moment where you go, I can't be bothered with this anymore, because it was very demanding, because you are dealing, when you're dealing with high net worth and beauty. Again, I did not invent the wheel, but when you're dealing with people who are used to hearing yes or getting things handed on a silver platter, when someone pops along like me and says, no, no, we're not doing that, or we're not going to do that way, they're not used to that. So there's conflict, which I would imagine why everyone loved viewing the Millionaire Matchmaker. It was such a massive hit, and it was because it had all the elements for a great reality TV show. But yes, it's always very challenging when you're dealing with human nature and people. So it was, and then it was
I think that's
sometimes not.
I think that's super fascinating. I've seen The Millionaire Matchmaker, and I think Patty's approach is so unique, and I think she's extremely skilled and effective. So as you were speaking, I was just wondering, are you tough love like Patty is, or do you have a different kind of approach when it came
Uh,
to your experience?
That's a good question. My delivery is not as brutal or as harsh. And of course, she was on a TV show, so they want that. That's what the public likes to see. And we know that just by the nature of reality TV shows. I will also say that she is a bit like that in real life. So, my delivery is not as in your face, but I am definitely firm but fair, is what I consider myself to be. I don't know what others think, but I'm definitely quite opinionated when needed, and that's why people used to pay me. They don't. When people come to a matchmaker, and by the way, when I match made, there was no swiping, so it's pre-app day, and when people would use a matchmaker in those days, it really was to find love and to find a partner, and with a view to getting married. And fortunately or unfortunately, the apps have sort of gone away with that in a way. It's quite disheartening what the apps have done to the art of dating. And I'm old school, and I'm pretty much still of the mindset that I like my man to be a man and I like to be a girl, and very old fashioned in that respect. But that is a dying trade. I hate to say it. It's going sideways because of the apps.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
totally
think you're right
agree. I
about
think,
that.
yeah, I mean, Cece's married, has me for a long time, but I myself am single, and I have experienced, that that kind of transition from what you're talking about there, which is normal dating, into that kind of dating app swiping, and it's very kind of transactional, isn't it? You kind of lost the art of how to date and how to be, someone who can have a conversation almost.
If you think back to the pre-app days, it was quite simple. The formula was you get up, you get dressed, you put your high heels on and your makeup and you do your hair and you go out. And then you make eye contact and then you start a chat and then you go from there. One of the main issues I consider with the apps is it gives you a bit of ADD because it's forever. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And unfortunately, what that does is if anyone says one thing wrong or does one thing wrong, next, because you've always got this influx in your inbox. And so people don't, I think when you're dating, you have to give everything. And you have to give everything for however long, whether you say, I'm gonna swipe with this man and for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, I'm just going to focus on this person. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. What we do is there's 100 in the inbox and we flip, and then we chat, and then we call. But we never actually meet anymore. And then if we do meet, like I said, if it's just not quite right, whereas in the past we would work with it. Let's work with what we've got. Now we're more inclined to go, oh, no, what else?
Yeah.
It's very, having been a matchmaker, having dated pre-app, I think they've solved a problem on meeting people that you would not normally meet, but has it really resolved the problem of how to date? And I was also a date coach, and I think I think it's made that aspect of it worse. I don't think people really know how to date anymore, which is a bit sad. But that's just my opinion from having a lot of experience in that genre.
I think I'd have to agree with you there, someone who has attempted to date via dating apps. And kind of, like the kind of chivalry thing is dead, really, and yeah.
Well, I've just finished, as you brought up earlier, I've just finished building this house, which has left. I'm relaxing a little bit, and part of my relaxation will be to re-enter this because I just feel there's a little bit of a need, some help needed in what's going on in the dating world, particularly, and my focus would be the youth. When you start looking at 16 to 21-year-olds that don't know anything except swiping, they don't know how to make eye contact, they don't know how to talk, they don't actually ever meet, they just message each other. I've had girls working with me and I said, oh, lovely, when are you going to get together? No, we're not. So it's odd. That's what they do. So I'd like to help out in that if I could.
I think all men
I
need
think that
help with that, to be fair, but yeah, so he goes.
no, I definitely would agree there. I was just going to add that I have an 18-year-old son who I just dropped off at college. And it's interesting when I see how my children, I have a 15-year-old daughter as well, but when I see how they interact, everything is done. Their communication is all on text, either Snapchat or TikTok or whatever it is. And I don't think they know how to have a face-to-face
No.
conversation. It's not like how we grew up, where like our parents would put us in a room and say, "Go make some friends," and you have to talk to someone. They don't know how
No,
to do that. It's frightening.
very sad, very frightening, and you've just exactly said what I see, and got to do something about that. I feel quite strongly. My son's only 9. I've told him very clearly, you will not get a phone until you're 16, and then you will only be able to talk and text. That's it. Don't ask them. I think the apps are a slippery slope, and I do think we've lost the art of communication, which is actually what I'm certified in. transactional analysis is what I'm certified in. Androgynous semantic realignment, which is just a fancy word for androgynous male-female semantics, words, realignment of the brain. So
Right.
that's what I'm certified in. So while I have a pause on the real estate for a minute, just to catch my breath, I'd love to circle back because I love it. It's not work for me. It's a pleasure to try and help people.
Mm.
Oh, I love hearing that.
Yeah.
I can definitely hear your passion, and I think you know that you've made the right decision when you have that much passion about doing something and it really aligns to who you are and what you believe in. And I can definitely sense that in the few minutes that we've been chatting. So that's great.
Yeah.
All right. I do want to make a transition here because I really want to dive more into your journey because you have such an interesting background. So, you've made this jump from matchmaking to developing these multi-million dollar, real estate projects. And I think that takes a lot of courage, certainly perseverance. And I think you have to be bold while chasing that. But I'm curious, how did you I know you must have had your challenges and pitfalls along the way. It wouldn't be realistic if you didn't. But how did
Mhm.
you navigate those challenges when you were starting out? And, what kind of advice would you give someone who's maybe facing similar hurdles today?
Well, I was very lucky in one respect. And it did take, it wasn't an overnight success, but I had planted a seed with someone, and it took about 9 months for this someone to lend me some money so I could do my first home. And the pressure was intense because I knew it was a one and done situation. And but I feel like there's nature and nurture. If I look at my son, he is an alpha. He's a leader. He's grabbing the world. And then there are people who are more dormant, a little bit more subdued. Who are very happy going to work 9 to 5 and leaving all the problems at the door. So I think when we look at nature, we're born a certain way. I was born, and my son has my personality, to strive for more. If you look at where I was born, born in the north of England. I, for some strange reason, at 9 years old, told my mother, "Do not teach me how to cook or clean because I'm not going to do it." Now, to have that thought should never have even been there. That was not
Love
to lie that that I was born into. But for some reason, that was the life I wanted. And I left England at 21. I think I had $500 with me, and born myself a new life. Now, I was also lucky in a respect because I started modeling at 13, and what that allowed was doors to be open, world to be seen, opportunities that I would never have had if
Right.
I hadn't have modeled. So I have to say there was a little bit of luck there. But if you take the luck and you take the inspiration and the aspiration and the desire and the drive,
Yeah.
then you can really start. So you've got to really, I think, start by asking yourself, what is it that I want to achieve in my world? There's no right or wrong answer. It's just what's your personal goal? And some people's personal goals are literally to have a nice flat or apartment, as you say, and a couple of children, and marry their childhood sweetheart and live happily ever after. Perfect. That's perfect for them,
Yeah.
right? But for me, it was always more, 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 more. I was never satisfied staying here. And
Mm.
many years later, I'm still not satisfied staying here. I said this before, and I'll say it again. I know billionaires who are the hardest working people I know, and they're not working for money. It's a drive. So you either have the drive or you don't. So let's start there.
Mhm.
Then, if you are given an opportunity, which I was, grasp it. Don't let that
Mhm.
opportunity go. It may be the only one you ever get. So grab it and run. And then You've got to do 2 feet in, whatever it is. Whatever I do in my life, I'm 2 feet in. There's never 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm in, and I'm in fully. So commit yourself to whatever it is that you decide you're going to do. And then once you've committed, get on with it. I said on my Instagram once, quitting is not an option. Because
No.
if you look at that, that's an option. Well, when things do get challenging, which they will,
Yeah.
you'll take that option. So
Yeah.
quitting's not an option.
No.
And if you think that it's not an option, you remember in the olden days, divorce was not an option. You just had to get. Now it's an option. So 66% of people choose the option. So quitting's not an option, because then are you going to do? Start again with something else and put 1 foot in and 1 foot out and then quit? It doesn't work. It's just that revolving door. So pick something, put 2 feet in, grab any opportunity you get and commit to it fully. I'm not going to say everything is going to work out. It absolutely does not. I can tell you right now, we are in one of the worst real estate markets we've seen. I've just built a very, very expensive home. So what do I have to do? I have to think outside the box, because the market's sluggish, the interest rate's the highest. It's a very, very difficult time. I didn't plan for that, but that's the reality. And, when I think about where I started, which was with a $50,000 loan, and where I've come to, it is staggering, because a girl like me who was born where I was born, this life should not have happened. But then you go back to the theory, well, if I can do it, you can do it. And, my father was a blue collar working man. My mother had 2 jobs. So really, it's about having that drive and that ambition and running when you get an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about luck there, but really it's like you had opportunities and you took them rather than it being about luck, because everybody can have opportunities in place in front of them, but they don't do anything with it. And so you can call that luck, or you can call it, as you say, where you've just been saying, is you went in and you took those opportunities and you went in and you weren't afraid to fail. You weren't afraid to make mistakes. You weren't afraid of what the outcome was. You just went, I know I want something. I'm going to keep going until I get it, and keep going, keep going. So, yeah, it's amazing.
I think there is always fear, and I think you use fear as your motivator. When I was given that opportunity with my $50,000 in hand, and I was told this is it, there was fear. What if it doesn't work? This is my only chance. This is the only opportunity. But that's what should drive you more. The fear is what should drive you not to fail. Failure is inevitable. There's going to be things that you do that doesn't work. Failure is part of life. What do you do when you fail, right? Do you just go, oh, I'm no good. I'm not good enough. No, you don't. Well, that didn't work out. Why did it not work out? What could I have done differently? You reflect on it, you pivot with it, and then you try it a different way, because you're never not going to fail. The only fail that you truly have in life is not trying.
Yeah, quitting.
Yeah.
That's who I am. I don't have to tell him, because he's a businessman already. But like I said before, we're talking about nature and nurture. My boy at 9 tells me he wants to be an entrepreneur. He's homeschooled. So if he was in school, he would be doing a regular curriculum, and that would be his environment. And then he'd probably be encouraged to get, great grades and a good job at a steady company and a nice salary. But he's got me as his mother, and he's homeschooled. So we are reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and we're learning about taxes and assets and liabilities and LLCs, because if that's what you want to be, then let's learn about that. So again, nature, we're all born in different circumstances to different parents in different areas. And as I said earlier, I shouldn't really be here, but here I am. So I think the lesson there is anyone can really do it if they get a little help little luck, and lots of inspiration and desire.
Well said. I really love what you said about seizing the opportunity. That's exactly the mindset I take, even with roles that I've had or projects I'm pursuing, and even projects I'm pursuing outside of my steady employment. I think seizing the opportunity is really going to go a long way. And that's why you have to know what your drive is. And it comes back to why. Why are you driven to do this? What is the motivation behind it? I think when you have that drive, that pushes you even into more discomfort because, like you said, you're going to fail, you're going to make mistakes, but it's how you look at that as a learning experience, or, oh well, it didn't work out. I'm just going to stop here. That mindset makes all the difference. And I think you said those points perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That is awesome.
So, do you want to talk to us about this, this new development you've just got, this wonderful, beautiful home that you've just created? Like, I know you had some challenges with that property from, getting it started to even, as a woman as well, like some of the challenges you met as being the person in charge and the people you had to work with. We want to take us through kind of some of those challenges and how you got through those.
I think this property, it's taken 8 years to completion. My point is, you could build a city in 8 years. It should never have taken long. It was just a calamity of, well, we talked about luck earlier, bad luck. But, we had 3 years obtaining permits and 2 years with COVID delays, and then 3 years where I was really struggling working with my team, and lots of lessons to be learned, lots and lots. I walked away from this project with much more experience than I ever should have had. When you're a developer, you are employing people to build your house, and in essence what happened was I ended up taking over the project to make sure it was done better than it was being done, it to a standard that it should have always been done. And to your point, there was a level of, and I hate to say this, it pains me to say this, as I'm not that person, I'm men, women, I'm not, I'm all. But on this particular project, there was a lot of disrespect. I do work in a male-dominated industry. There are not, I actually don't know any, but I know there is one in LA. I do not know her, building what I build. So when you get to this level, the chief at the top is generally not a woman. And I think that was quite challenging for some of the people that were working on this job site, particularly when I took more of a role. And when I would, say, when you arrive, I'd like you to check in and sign in. Before you leave, I'd like to check your work and sign you out, because the first day I arrived here, everybody showed up late, including my project manager. So when I took them to task, the next day, nobody turned up. So you can see that is literally just one example. And all I asked to do was check in with me in the morning, let me see your work, sign it off before you leave. And nobody turned up. And you can't tell me that if a male developer had asked for the smallest check in the morning, check with me before you leave, that everyone would put down sticks and not turn up.
Yeah.
And that was a massive learning curve for me. Now I can walk away from this project saying, I can do it myself and I can do it better. And I know I can. Would I need to hire a project manager the next time? No, I can do it. I know everything now, the sequence, who comes next. I'm very detail orientated. And so just having everybody lined up, that was another thing. When you're building a house, it's a domino effect, right? So you everybody in place, the plumber, then the electrician, then the drywall. but you book these people in advance, whereas my team would let the one come in. Oh, now we need to call the electrician. Well, he's got a 2-week lead time.
Oh, right, yeah.
But you can imagine what that does to the project, because the project's just time and money. That's all it is. Time is money. So if you delay me 2 months, what could have been done in 2 weeks? But there was that level of disrespect again, because it wasn't their money. They got paid their salary every week. So that was it was very disappointing to me. I have now found a brand new crew who are brilliant and respectful, and we've lived to fight another day. But I could have done without it after COVID and everything else. But that's what I say. Quitting's not an option.
Definitely not.
No. I think it
Not
takes a lot of strength. That takes strength to deal with, when you're coming in as a female into a male-dominated industry and you need to command that respect. How do you get their respect in a way that respect then turns into followership? Because this work cannot happen in a vacuum. So how do you get your team on board when maybe they were used to following direction from a man?
It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of energy. And I just had my own system, and it was literally at 7 a.m. every morning. Every sub who'd ignored me would get a call every morning, every one of them. I had my list, and then when they ignored my call, I would copy and paste the same text every day, every day, every day. And I said to myself, there is going to be one moment at some point where they say, she's not quitting, she's not giving up, she's a mosquito around my ear. This girl's not going away. And so eventually, I think I just wore them down, to be honest. I mean, at some point, I think they're just like, let's just get. I said to them, put me in the rear view mirror. Do your job, let me pay you, and say goodbye.
Yeah.
But I think, again, we're all learning, and they had to learn. This girl's serious. This girl has to be taken seriously. We better just get on with it, and then we can go on to the next job. But it did take, and it's still, believe me, it was just one of the hardest things I've had to do. It was really, really hard. I think any less of person would have said, I'm not doing this. But I took it as a learning opportunity, and now I know I can do it myself. So really, I walked away a winner, even though it was challenging. I do look at it as a positive.
Yeah. How frustrating that you have to do that, though. Like that would, like the only difference is like your gender. You're still the boss. You're still the one paying the bills. And yet to have that level of disrespect for you is unbelievable just because you're a female. I mean, that kind of thing just has to stop, doesn't it?
It's extraordinary. And but again, now I found a good team, and I know they respect me. I know that they admire what I do, and it's night and day. When you have that, it really is night and day. And I think most women do what we call flips. Lipstick on a pig, right? They just get these little projects and put a new bathroom in, a new kitchen, a lick of paint, and they're out of the door. Have there been moments when I was like, gosh, I wish I was doing 10 of those instead of one of these? Yes, probably every day. Every day I could do it with blindfolded and tied behind my back. But, again, we go back to learning that lesson, always just learning.
Yeah. And you have created an absolutely stunning property. I mean, if any of our listeners have $25 million, then, hit Mel up. She's got a beautiful hat. It's absolutely beautiful. And, so now that you've done such a big property, what's kind of your next development? I mean, you mentioned obviously the dating coaching thing, which I think is like really needed, obviously we need something like that. it's a really good time to enter that space as well. But will you go on to like another development? Obviously it's in your blood to do that.
Y- Yes, look, I love love. That's in my blood. I'm always trying to matchmake. It's in you, it's in you, it's in me. But property, I realized the other night that every show I watch is property driven. Everyone. I've now found on YouTube all my British ones that I just returned from England and I wanted to keep watching them. So everything I seem to watch on telly is property based. And I realized that as much as I said I'm going to take a year and a year and a half off because I'm tired after 8 years of building, that it's probably not going to happen. That I just can't stop. It's a blessing and a curse. I go into any space, whether it's a friend's house, a restaurant, a hotel, anywhere, and I'm already just redesigning. It's one of those things. So will I build another one of these? Not anytime soon. No, I don't have anything left to prove. I've done a pinnacle. What am I going to do? A $50 million house? No, I don't need to do that. I think if we garnered anything from the market right now, it's better to put 10 eggs in 10 baskets. And I would say, look, it's challenging even for the lower end market because of the interest rates and for the people who need to get loans. So all the markets affected at the moment. But speaking forward going, I would be more partial to doing smaller projects because I feel like I've done this. This is it. This is my crowning, my crown jewel, and I really don't have anything left to prove. Now, of course, if someone wants to hire me to build one of these, not a problem. I will definitely take their money and build, and not use my right. Yeah, personally, I think I'd be happier just doing smaller projects and short because nobody's getting any younger.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think you have to, again, seize the opportunity. You've spoken a lot about your journey and all the different projects you've taken on, even your most recent project. And you said in previous interviews that you are a believer that hard work pays off. So staying focused, knowing your goal and focusing on that goal, and surely don't stop until you get there. So based on that philosophy, what do you think your greatest accomplishment has been since you've taken this journey?
I think there's a lot. I wouldn't want to pinpoint one thing. Obviously, we've just spoken about this house, and this house wasn't. It was. It was something that I would not want to do again, as far as the time and the energy and the effort and the fear. Um, it was really. It was really a big thing for me, and so I would certainly include that on my list. But if I look back on my life and I think about moving to a strange country, not having any money, not having a job to go to, not knowing anybody, not nothing, I go, that's pretty amazing. You were 22 years old, and how incredible was that? So when I look back at the certain things, I go, you've had a really interesting life. You know, um, little stories. When I started to model, we were told that we had elocution lessons and deportment, and was the other one. There's deportment, elocution, and another one. It was like finishing school.
Yeah.
And we were told that when we started to model, that we needed to be understood anywhere in the world that we worked. So having an accent was not going to be acceptable, and not knowing which knife and fork not to use was. So we were taught how to be ladies, for want of a better word, and to enter that world and present well. And I remember 16, and there was an event which Princess Anne was being awarded at, and we were there, and we were sat at a table of 10 eating lunch. And I remember, okay, cutlery, okay, got it. And I'm eating, and I have this very posh man next to me, and I remember saying to him, oh, this crab is delicious. And he said, it's lobster, dear. And I just thought, oh, you just totally burst my bubble. But again, so when you think about these moments in your life, I don't know, my greatest achievement is just getting out of where I was born and what I was born into. And even if I made those mistakes at 16, that's where you learn. Again, it's those experiences that make you go, okay, there's lobster. All right, fine, got it. I won't make a mistake again. And it's always about that. So if you take me back to the beginning, I would say my greatest achievement is doing something different than what the expectation of me should have been.
Cheers. Well said.
Yeah, really incredible. I mean, you've shared you've had such an incredible journey from, as you say, getting out of the north of England, becoming a model, moving to Los Angeles, starting your whole kind of property kind of journey there, also doing matchmaking, going back into probably ending up with a $25 million property that you have designed and built from scratch by yourself, project managed. Now, I mean, it's a stunning home. Now you've got this on the market. Like, that is such an amazing journey. I really, really am so inspired by you. And I hope that our listeners are inspired by you too. And you're a gorgeous looking woman as well. You're absolutely stunning. So, of course, you were a model.
Yes.
And very, very lovely to chat to. And we could talk to you all day long. There's so many questions about everything that you've done. And from now moving into the dating thing and perhaps taking on some more properties. So it'd be really interesting for our listeners to kind of watch your journey. And no doubt that everyone's got a lot out of this conversation with you today. So just to wrap up, like, what's kind of one piece of advice that you would like to share with our listeners before we leave?
Well, I think I've already shared a few nuggets, but it really is circling back to, as I said earlier, commit, fully commit. Don't half commit. Pick something that you love first, because if you enjoy what you're doing, you're more inclined to keep doing it and keep trying to be successful in whatever it is you've chosen. I have always had a love of real estate and love. I love relationships. I'd always be the one, what's happening? Are you dating? And do you need my advice? That was even before I got into the business. Real estate. I remember when I came here to America from the north of England, and I went, oh my gosh, every house is completely different. I was fascinated because in England, where I was from, every house was the same.
Yeah.
I came here. So those were my loves. So if you pick something that you love, you're just definitely more inclined to give it your all, to make it a success, do your best. Whereas if you're like, oh, well, my mum wanted me to be a vet, but I don't really want to be a vet, then you'll do it, because of some peer pressure and so pick something you love. 2 feet in, quitting's not an option. Of course, I don't want you to lose your house. So at some point, it's like this book, and I think this is a good book for people to read. My son's learning such a lot at 9 years old. If you read the book, and I'm not a promoter of this book, but I do like the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he does say, have your job, your regular job that gives you a salary, and then on the side, mind your own business. And that's what my son's learning. What does mind your own business mean? It means that you've got your salary, you make your money, pay your bills. What's left over, invest it into your business, and then reinvest, and then reinvest. So you're building your own business, mind your own business. And that's a really good way, because if it doesn't work, you're still here, nice and secure and safe.
Yeah.
And then you can try something else. So those are my tips if you're going to try and start your own business and be an entrepreneur.
Amazing.
This has been a great chat, Melanie. Again, we can't thank you enough for coming on to our show and sharing your journey with us and giving our listeners really the inspiration, the motivation to keep pushing. And just as we wrap up, what I'll do is I'll include your link to your Instagram, so in the show notes, so that our listeners can follow you and just see how you're evolving. And of course, stay connected with your journey. So again, really, thank you so much for being with us here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Leading Ladies Who Lunch podcast. As we wrap up, what is one takeaway you got from our guest, Melanie, that inspired you today? And as always, if you like this episode, we would be so grateful if you can share it with your friends and tag us on social media at Leading Ladies Who Lunch. Your reviews of this podcast mean so much to us. We'd love it if you can rate it and subscribe to the show.
Remember, you can find us and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. Subscribe to stay up to date with the latest episodes and follow us on Instagram, at Leading Ladies Who Lunch.
Tune in 2 weeks for another great episode.
Until then, stay sassy. Thank you for joining us on the empowering journey at the Leading Ladies Who Lunch podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our insightful discussions, actionable strategies, and inspiring stories that we break down during each episode. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Leading Ladies Who Lunch on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And remember, the conversations you've heard on this podcast are just the beginning of your journey. Let your voice be heard, inspire change, and continue breaking barriers as you lead with authenticity, resilience, and unwavering determination.
Until next time, keep embracing your leadership potential, challenging the norms, and shaping a better world for women in the workplace. Leading Ladies Who Lunch, empowering women, changing lives.